There's a point in every musician's career that I know of where they make a significant or in some cases drastic change in their sound, which is often met with criticism by the artist's respective fan base. Especially when it comes to heavy music, most bands tend to become less heavy and more commercialized, becoming somewhat more mainstream friendly, when in many cases they were the very antithesis of commercial music to begin with.
You know, we were kids who were suddenly famous, and we became every cliche that we hated. We fought every cliche leading up to getting signed and going out and playing shows, and then all of a sudden we had everything.
As a result, many fans have major falling out with an artist or a band. In case of Marilyn Manson, I can say with significant amount of confidence that it was Hollywood that is considered by many fans to be his last truly great record. In my opinion, it was the golden age of grotesque. I think that album had an interesting concept and does not get nearly enough credit it deserves. It was dark and heavy, with good songwriting, and it leaned way more into that industrial element of Manson's sound, thanks to which this record confidently stands on its own feet. But after this point, Manson's music began to fall out of favor with me for a few reasons. He began to lean more into topics that addressed his personal battles, instead of making thought-provoking social statements, criticism of authority and entertainment industry. This is what he was mostly known for. There is nothing wrong with exploring more personal subjects, but with this personal approach, his mysterious persona began to dissolve, and he became more human, for a lack of better word, and interest in him as an artist began to wane. Tabloid stories of him taking out a few ribs so that he could pleasure himself and Manson getting breast implants became a thing of the past.
Great stuff, man. I don't know where you got the idea for that, but you got breasts?
Well, you know what the problem is? Everybody hated me so much last year. Everyone loves breasts.
Right.
So, I get breasts and everyone loves me.
As a result, he became a far less interesting and less controversial figure in public's eye. With this, his music became less exciting, less aggressive, and more timid. His vocals, both live and on the records, did not sound quite as impressive. Honestly, by 2005 his voice started to go through major changes in a bad way, and I think this will be reflected in his studio albums in the following years, with Eat Me, Drink Me and High End of Low being very much on the lighter side. This also coincided with the change of what it meant to be a rock star at the time in general. Of course, new fans came along who were able to appreciate Manson's new direction in sound and self-exploration to a far greater extent than his old-school fans, for whom Manson was an icon of rebellion and anti-establishment, a status which he seems to have lost by mid-2000s. For many years, I myself have lost interest in Manson as an artist, hoping that with every new release he will be able to recapture the magic of his earlier career, but unfortunately it never happened. In 2010s, Manson's public image was suffering quite a bit, leaving many of his fans disillusioned. Erratic behaviors during shows became frequent, resulting in poor live performances. He went into rants during live shows.
I don't want to fall onto you with my dick with that cord, so can you fix it, please? And don't give me an uppity look because you're not black.
Broke his leg when he pulled a heavy prop towards himself. Got sick on stage and was dragged off stage during a song. course, this was not because he was drinking orange juice every morning and was living a healthy lifestyle. Alcohol and other substances were one of the causes for his behavior. So, of course, Manson was not looking great at this time. It felt like he was very much becoming an old, washed-up, irrelevant rock star caught in a downward spiral. Not to mention that within this decade, both his mother, who battled dementia for years, and his father passed away. But the string of bad events was not done with Manson just yet. In 2020, Manson's 11th studio album was released, titled We Are Chaos. But just as Manson began to promote his new album, the allegations and accusations against Manson came to light.
Now to the disturbing allegations against musician Marilyn Manson.
The actress taking to Instagram to expose who she says is a dangerous man, saying,
"I was brainwashed and manipulated into submission. I am done living in fear of retaliation, slander, or blackmail.
I am here to expose this dangerous man and call out the many industries that have enabled him before he ruins any more lives. I stand with the many victims who will no longer be silent."
As a result, he was dropped by his record label and nobody in the entertainment business wanted to work with him. In simple terms, Marilyn Manson was very much cancelled. Even though Marilyn Manson as a public persona went through a lot of controversies throughout his career, most notably being accused of allegedly influencing the students of the Columbine shooting with his music, which was eventually proven to be false.
The kids weren't even fans of me. I think they probably thought that I was too much of a sissy because I was wearing lipstick. I don't really know.
The allegations that came to light were of more serious and personal nature and were targeting Brian Warner, not his alter ego. So this time things were different. This effectively put his career on hold. His public appearances became scarce and he has not given any interviews since the release of his 2020 album. For 4 years, Manson remained dormant as a creative who was too busy dealing with multiple lawsuits filed against him. In 2024, the allegations against Brian Warner were dropped. Some for lack of evidence, some due to the statute of limitations expiring. In return, Brian Warner dropped his defamation lawsuit against his ex-fiancée, effectively putting the allegations and legal battles behind him. It remains unclear whether the allegations were truthful, and it is unlikely we will ever know. Regardless, enough of Manson's contemporaries and fanbase stood by his side, which made it possible for him to get signed to a record label, Nuclear Blast, in 2024. On September 27, 2024, Marilyn Manson announced the release date of his 12th studio album, Assassination Under God, Chapter 1. When Manson's return was announced, I honestly did not expect much from his new music until As Sick as the Secrets Within was released. And I must admit, I loved this song. This was the best song I have heard by Manson in like 20 years. A return to form, I thought. But it was probably too soon to say that based on one single. But needless to say, this was a major surprise to me, so I began looking forward to his new album quite a bit. An album that would mark the return of Marilyn Manson in more ways than one. When new pictures of Manson and the music video for his new single were released, everyone was surprised as to how Manson was looking. There's plenty of comparison photos online that compare how he looked in the late 90s and how he looks in 2024. It truly did seem as if Manson built a time machine. He looks great, not gonna lie. The music video for As Sick as the Secrets Within, of course, contains symbolism, such as religious iconography, including imagery of fallen angels, the Virgin Mary, and scenes of Manson drinking from the sacred chalice, also known as the Holy Grail, which is considered to be the vessel that Jesus used at the Last Supper to share his blood before his crucifixion. This is of course in reference to Manson's recent very public downfall after the accusations against him were publicized in every possible outlet. The shot of Manson sitting at the table with the human skull behind him was inspired by Caravaggio's early 17th century painting, Saint Jerome in Meditation. Imagery of an octopus is seen throughout the video. In some cultures, octopus symbolizes wisdom, transformation, creativity, and flexibility. In spiritual sense, octopus represents ability to overcome challenging situations with creativity and intelligence. Also, Manson seems to be wearing an old-school pilot hat, which most likely refers to his addiction and the line in the pre-chorus of the song. This symbol is shown several times in the video, so it must hold some significance. As to what it actually means in the context of the video can be left for interpretation. But in alchemy, this is one of the 4 classical elements which symbolizes air. It also can represent the East, the soul, life, communication, and wisdom. And finally, in some shots Manson is trapped within a cephalopod-type placenta, out of which he breaks out by the end of the video. This symbolizes transformation or rebirth. Needless to say, the video says a lot about Manson's current state of mind and the concept of the new record. So releasing As Sick as the Secrets Within as his first single made total sense. I must add that the video looks stunning and visually reminds me of his Mechanical Animals and Hollywood era quite a bit, which makes perfect sense because the video was directed by Bill OAUG, with whom Manson has collaborated several times, dating all the way back to 1998, when OAUG edited music videos for The Dope Show and To date, OAUG has directed 9 music videos for Marilyn Manson. All 4 music videos from One Assassination Under God Chapter 1 are directed by OAUG. As Sick as the Secrets Within did very well on the charts, debuting at number 1 on Billboard's hard rock digital song sales. The song also did well in the UK. August 16, the second single Raise the Red Flag is released, which also did well on the charts. The single was also released physically on the maxi CD as a limited edition of 3,000 copies. The song is more aggressive and active than the first single. In terms of sound, it also reminds me of the golden age of grotesque. And I have to mention that Manson's vocal performance on the chorus of the song is quite impressive. The music video, however, for this song is far more simple in comparison to As Sick as the Secrets Within. It's just a band performance music video. But this was for a reason, as this was an introduction of the new band lineup, which most notably features a female guitarist, Reba Meyers, who is better known for her main band, called Orange. She is also the first female member in the history of Marilyn Manson. On social platforms, she was criticized for joining Marilyn Manson for obvious reasons, but it was not all negative, as she did receive support from numerous of her contemporaries, and she stood by her decision, posting on her Instagram, "I'm proud to represent growth, confidence, forgiveness, humanity, and change that comes with this, and to be up there with such talented motherfuckers." As for the rest of the new band lineup, on drums is Gil Sharon, who is currently a member of Stolen Babies, Team Sleep, and he is also the ex-drummer of the Dillinger Escape Plan, with whom he recorded the band's 3rd studio album. And if you know anything about the Dillinger Escape Plan, you can appreciate how good of a drummer this guy actually is. He was working with Manson on and off since 2013 up until 2019. As of 2024, Gil joined Marilyn Manson once again, not only as a touring member but also as the recording drummer on the latest album. On bass, Matthew Montgomery, better known by his stage name Biggie D, who has worked with bands such as Rob Zombie, Alice Cooper, Wednesday 13 and Amen. He also joined Marilyn Manson in 2024. And last but not least, on lead guitar is Tyler Bates, who has previously worked with Manson on 2 of his records, The Pale Emperor and Heaven Upside Down, on both of which he's credited as the co-producer and co-writer, just like on the latest album. I think that Manson and Bates work very well together, which is evident judging by the new album. Initially, Bates was primarily known as a film score composer and worked on quite a few A-tier films in Hollywood over the years. He also worked with Jerry Cantrell of Alice in Chains. September 27th, the third single, Sacrilegious, is released. Sacrilegious is more of an upbeat song. Thematically, it deals with the subject of martyrdom, resurrection, and cancel culture in a more direct manner, by saying in the lyrics of the chorus, so it seems like a perfect choice for a single. November 22nd, One Assassination Under God Chapter 1 is released, alongside the final single of the same title. The release date is not random.
President Kennedy has been assassinated. It's official now. The president is dead.
And this is not the first time Marilyn Manson makes a reference to JFK. Manson reenacted the assassination of Kennedy in the Coma White music video, portraying a crucified and deified Manson in the role of Kennedy. It expresses how John F. Kennedy had become a second Christ in the eyes of America, when his televised assassination had made him into a martyr in the public's eye. One Assassination Under God was accompanied by a music video which has more visual symbolism than the two previous relatively simplistic videos. Manson sits at the table in front of a birthday cake, which most likely refers to his rebirth. Birthday balloons are tied to the chairs. Balloons can be a metaphor for joy and freedom, but since the balloons are tied to the chairs with strings, it's reasonable to assume that both freedom and joy have their boundaries and limitations. In another scene, Manson is standing in rain holding an umbrella. Umbrella can have several meanings. It symbolizes unity, power, protection, and shadow. Other vital symbolisms and metaphors are scapegoat, mob with pitchforks, and a mountain of smoking logs of wood, which most likely refers to witch burning in medieval times, which perfectly aligns with the lyrics In another scene, we see Manson on a dirt road dragging a burning coffin, with a cross carved on top of the coffin. It may be interpreted as a burden and sacrifice. This scene is also reminiscent of a popular scene from the 1966 film Django. Drawing a parallel between the two images, this scene may serve as a symbol of deadly revenge like it does in the movie. There are several other scenes and lyrics that can be interpreted in several ways, but I believe the ones that I mentioned are the most important ones. The rest of the details most likely expand on the same themes and meanings. As an opening track of the album, One Assassination Under God serves as a perfect and all-encompassing song, which sets the theme and mood for the album overall. I think this is also one of the strongest songs on the record, and works perfectly as an opener. Track 2, No Funeral Without Applause, is more of a middle-of-the-road song. Not too heavy, not too light. The chorus is definitely a standout here. The song also contains some of my favorite lyrics in the album in this bar. You can send away your firing squad, you're gonna need to behead me, immoral looking to be immortal, but nothing fits to a T. That's clever writing, not a foreign concept for Manson, of course. The lyrics and title most likely refer to glorifying Manson's public quote-unquote assassination, which a lot of people were on board with in terms of the events of 2020 and onward. But there's also references to close ones of Manson and fans who supported him during these turbulent times. I need somebody to stitch me up so I don't bleed on the ones I love. Track 3, Nod If You Understand, is the heaviest on the album and contains one of the standout vocal performances on the album by Manson. The song comes off as an angry revenge song and implores those who shamed him to look at themselves. Track 6, Death Is Not a Costume, has one of my favorite choruses on the album, and the outro with that pseudo breakdown is unexpected and works really well. Track 7, Meet Me in Purgatory, is another favorite of mine. It's more of an upbeat song and the main riff as well as bass line are very good, even though rather simple. In terms of meaning, I have found this interesting fan theory. This is about Manson knowing that he will die before Lindsay, his significant other, given the age gap. By when they come to murder me, he means when I can no longer defend myself and they try to destroy my legacy with more accusations. Track 9, Sacrifice of the Mass. This is a heavy one. Manson mentions both his mother and father, both of whom have passed away, and he's getting ready to meet them. The darkest song on the record and a perfect closer for One Assassination Under God Chapter 1. I guess we're gonna have to wait and see what Chapter 2 will bring and how the story will unravel for this concept album. In regards to this, Manson said, "One Assassination Under God Chapter 1 is the first half of my story. These songs were conjured from purgatory and are as raw as a row of broken teeth that slightly resemble a smile. My art is what I live for. This album means to me exactly what I choose it to mean. I hope when you listen, it is the same for you." Chapter 2 is set for release in 2025. Ironically, the events of 2021 might have been the best thing that could have happened to Manson. Within the 4 years of absence as an artist, he seemed to have had a hard look at himself, reflected, re-evaluated his priorities and existence. Got in shape, got clean.
Thank you everybody for coming, I really appreciate it. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for everybody here, even the new people I haven't met yet. And everybody else who's loved and supported me. I love you guys. Thank you for everything.
We love you.
In exactly 1 month, it'll be my 4 years sober. So I get another cake then too.
And released, in my opinion, his best album since the golden age of grotesque, which is not an easy feat. I don't think I know of any band that has accomplished something like this so late into their career. This is indeed a return to form for Marilyn Manson in more ways than one. When it comes to art, it's been widely discussed that tormented souls seem to create the best art. Even though Manson has always been a magnet for controversy, the events of 2021 were different and had different implications. Perhaps challenging Manson was exactly what he needed for him to create another masterpiece, become a better person, and turn his life around. Currently, Manson is on tour, and I have watched some of the live performances here on YouTube, and I must say I was very surprised. I didn't think he could sound this good at 55, especially considering that the quality of his vocals was dropping rapidly in recent years. I think it would be a stretch to say that he sounds as good as he did at the peak of his popularity, but his live performances so far have exceeded any expectations I had. If I will get a chance to see him live, I definitely will. Thank you for watching and see you in the next one. Take care.
We're fucking back! How does it feel to be right when people underestimate you? They tried to take you away from me and they tried to take me away from you and they fucked